Hey everyone, I'm here today with Jud Anglin, and I'm going to start doing something a little bit different here. A lot of times I've been talking to kind of publishers and people who are or some of the founders in the space, and I really feel like there's this huge group of really experienced veterans in the space that would be great to kind of feature and get out to talk to everybody. And so I want to do this new series, and Jud is the first person I want to talk to. So Jud, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having
And
me. Yep.
yeah, and so my thought here is that like there's so many people in the space that should know each other, or we should all know, because when you need to reach out to somebody, when you need to talk to somebody, or you need to hire somebody, we don't know everybody. Or you come to the big events, and you meet people there, but like otherwise you may not know who's in the space. And so a lot of folks like you, Jud, have like these really interesting stories, like just done some amazing things, and also have then came into the space after doing all these other things, and then kind of took that experience and used it within a publishing environment. And so I guess kind of to start, for everyone who doesn't know Jud has worked for like the past 10 years, right? At
Yeah,
various,
Gora.
yeah, at Agora Financial. I know you've been working with Addison quite a bit on getting his Wiggins sessions going and other things. But before we get into kind of all of your FinPub experience and history, I really want to hear more about your, I mean, you launched the first medical tourism business in the United States, right?
Yeah, that's right. I can tell you basically how it got started and how I came up with the idea. I was visiting Thailand in like 2000, I think it was 2001, with my family during Christmas break. And I was hit with the worst food poisoning you can imagine. High fever, delirious. So my family's like, you got to go to the hospital. So they took me to a hospital in central Bangkok. And I had the thought of going to an American hospital. It's going to be like that. Because I think it was like New Year's Eve, actually. So I thought it was going to be super crowded. It's going to be a mess. I'm in a foreign country, not able to speak Thai or anything like that. But I go in there, and to my amazement, it was like a beautiful hospital. The valet came out to the car, put me in a wheelchair, rolled me in. Beautiful atrium, palm trees everywhere. A pianist, at the reception area playing a piano. I was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. So anyway, we check in just like we do here in the States, gave my information, passport information, things like that. And they told me to go wait, and I thought I'd be waiting hours, but I think it was less than 5 minutes. They called me up to the desk, and a doctor was already there. And he said, let me take your temperature, look at you. And he's like, yeah, you're very dehydrated, and we want to treat the fever. So I'm going to have them roll you up to a room right now, and we're going to do an IV drip on you to get you rehydrated. I was like, okay, sounds good. So they put me on the elevator, take me up. I think it's like the 10th floor, roll me down to a room. It's a huge, like it's a 5-star resort. It's a huge room with, I remember the windows from the floor to the ceiling with great view of Bangkok, right? So they roll me over, start the IV drip, told me it'd take about 4 hours, give me some medication for the fever. So I just thought that this was going to be the most expensive thing. I was just thinking this is going to cost thousands of dollars.
Right.
When we finally checked out, the total bill was under $100. I was completely shocked. I was like, this is insane. How's that work? I didn't understand it. So anyway, when I got home, I just kept thinking about that, and it's like, wow, that is so inexpensive. There's so many Americans that have problems with their insurance, or uninsured or underinsured. There's got to be a way to promote traveling abroad for this. So I spent about a year in setup and researching and doing everything I needed to do to establish this company, and launched in 2003, 2004. And then I had a gentleman from Chicago that reached out to me one day and said, hey, I've been thinking about doing this business too. I want to fly to Baltimore and meet you and see if we can do this together. So he came out and met me, and we agreed to work together. And we just went into complete build mode and promotion mode. So we set up the first American medical tourism company. And there's so much more to it than just a medical tourism company. I mean, you have to think we are going to target the uninsured Americans, but we're looking at procedures like hip replacements, knee replacements, spinal fusions, of course, cosmetic and dental as well. So we had to create a very safe process, reach out to the best hospitals that were accredited by the same accreditation organizations here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
We did all of this. And then we set up this tracking system. We had 2 tracks. And keep in mind, this is in 2005, so you didn't have like Entrepreneurial or Aweber or MailChimp, anything like that. We had to build it from goldmine at the time. But it was like drip campaigns that we would automate it. So every day, like if somebody was interested, they would sign up and say, this sounds interesting. We would put them on track to start receiving drip mails every 3 days about why medical tourism is safe. What are the benefits? What we look for? You know, embassies around the world, they have their staff there. They know which hospitals they're going to send their staff. So there's so many ways that you can check and guarantee that you're finding the best hospitals out there.
Well, I say that's a great credibility hook right there. Because let me back up before we get into all the marketing stuff, because I think there's a ton there. Like that's really cool. Like just like intro to that. But before you even get to one, like the content and marketing that you're doing, which I'd love to get to that. But before that, you have a basic, like, I would say like a kind of a business development issue, which is you have to basically pull together a network of folks that you know that you can recommend, like you said, hospitals, countries. So what was that process like for you guys? How did you start to go out and actually start to develop relationships and find which hospitals you should talk to? And what were the other pieces besides just like hospitals that you had to work with?
Well, the first thing we did is, that's a great question. We had to research a lot and find out, how do we know what reputable hospitals are in the US? Of course, you have a name brand like Hopkins or, Boston Medical or things like that. We all know about those hospitals, but, every small town has a hospital. But what they go through is an accreditation process, and usually it's the Joint Commission, which I believe is based in Chicago. But they have an accreditation process, and I think they do this every so often, maybe every year, every 2 years. They go to a hospital and they have a checklist of like cleanliness, the process that they go through, like everything that they do. And hospitals are like, when JCI or Joint Commission is coming through, they're always like making sure that everything is set and ready to go. Totally clean, totally great environment, and they're following all their procedures. So the Joint Commission had an international division. So they were actually going out and accrediting international hospitals on the same procedures that we use here in the US. So that's what we went to that list, and then we would go to places like Thailand. We looked in Bangkok, Malaysia, Penang, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Brazil, like Turkey. There were these hospitals that were amazing hospitals, but the costs were a fraction of the cost here in the US. So we would reach out to them and speak with their marketing or sometimes even CEO and say, we are interested in doing this and we would like to come for a visit. And most of these hospitals agreed. So we would go visit them. They would give us a tour. They would, show us the entire property and talk about their process and procedures and how they deal with international patients. So that's how we got started. And then we signed agreements with these hospitals that we agreed to promote. And then I think at one point we had 11 hospitals around the world that people could go to through our process. Again, because you're going for a hip or knee replacement or a spinal fusion or whatever else it is, you want everything to be seamless, absolutely seamless, right, safe and stress-free. Because we all know that if the more you reduce stress in anytime you have surgery, the better the outcome. So we were going with that mindset. It's like, we have to develop a process ourselves where we take care of every last detail. So when they're on the customer track, we're scheduling the surgery. We're getting the information on the doctor, their bio. we're getting from the patient, we're getting the X-rays, MRI, CT scans. We're getting all those digital files, transporting them very safe and securely through the process that we developed to the hospitals. They review those, they get back to us. We start the planning of the surgery date, the hotels, the flight, everything that they need to take with them, educating them about the currency. This is what the currency looks like. Make sure you study it. And then we set it up so that we could accept the upfront deposit to our company here in the US instead of sending it to a hospital.
Did you have either, like, what were you doing previous to this? Were you, do you have any healthcare background? Did your partner have any healthcare background? Did you have marketing background? Like, what was your kind of previous life?
Yeah, it was very entrepreneurial. I got an MBA from GW, and then I got out during the .com era. So I worked for a couple small .coms, but I was very entrepreneurial, always looking for big ideas. And when I, got sick in Thailand and I was shocked by that bill, that's when I was like, this is something that it's daunting, but I had savings. It didn't cost that much to build. And I just, I went for it. So no health background at all, but I knew that, and we made this claim right up front, and is all of our disclaimers, that we're not doctors. We're not healthcare professionals. We're a bridge. We're going to get all that information, but ultimately you have to decide whether you want to go through with it or not. But we're going to set up a process that makes it easy, because we had clients before that tried to do it themselves, and they ended up coming to us because they're like, well, I heard about this, so I try to call this hospital in Bangkok, but they're 12 hours ahead, so the timing was right. Then I would get somebody on the phone and they're speaking Thai to me, or if they did speak English, I didn't understand what they were saying. So it was just so cumbersome, I couldn't go through with it. Well, we were able to work out and like make all that very easy by our connections. So we knew, for example, the receptionists there that were very fluent in English, and those were ours. And we would call and say, hey, this is bed retreat. We need Eileen. And it's like, we got Eileen on the case. Same with the doctors. All the doctors pretty much spoke English, some not as well, but all of the surgeons that we sent people to, very fluent in English, not a problem. And if you think about it, most of the medical or surgeons around the world, they get their medical degrees for a most part here in the US.
Right.
Yeah, they already know what's going on. They're using the same technology. Johns Hopkins came out with the Da Vinci robotics system, and they use that for mitral valve repair of the heart. And I think there's another procedure they use it for. But anyway, some of the hospitals we worked with had the Da Vinci system, which is amazing because it's very expensive. And so it's just, but as I talk, you hear along the way, we had the internet. So somebody called and they were talking about a procedure we didn't know about. We would just type it up and look at it and watch some videos on it. And that way we could speak to the customer, like, or patient, we called them. Like we didn't know about it. We weren't advising them, but we understood what they were talking about. And then when we connected with the hospital, we could explain, what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating idea. And from a, obviously, like, this is not related directly to FinPub, but there are some things that like immediately jump to mind for me that are relevant to, I think, everybody who's operating in this space. And one is the simple fact that this is a complex sale, and you're looking at kind of the business development skill set of how do you organize and put something together, and how do you think through that stuff? Because I think one of the big problems that everyone in the industry has, once you start to grow a little bit, is finding people who can think entrepreneurially in a real way, that understands the business, but can also actually just like understand how to put things together. Like, here's a project, we want to go start this division. Like, the founder of the company is limited on his time, and finding people who they can work with who can actually realize that, okay, there's a lot of moving pieces here. They all have to fit together. We have to think through the customer experience, and start to pull that together. And then also, I love that you went to the accreditation agency, because it's kind of like, it removes an objection right away. 2, it's a source of lead flow. And 3, it's I think a lot of people in our space, especially now when people are starting to look at some of the B2B opportunities out there, working with advisors and things like that, forget that there's ways to reach customers that are not just display advertising or advertising, buying ads in social channels. Like you can find customers in a lot of different ways. And so like those three things, like I think are really interesting. But then you're already talking about like, what year was this again when you started?
2005 is when we started accepting customers.
Okay. And you're putting together drip campaigns and email marketing, really well thought out in the sense of like that one, like just from a copy hook standpoint for me, like that again, addressing objections with like, hey, the embassy staff is going to a hospital somewhere in these countries. Which hospitals are they using? Like that's a great, it's a great email for this specific customer, right?
I have to say that, yeah, like medical is complex, right? And international medical is even more complex. Been able to like drill down and just think about the marketing and how to market this. It's like a lot of our customers, I would say most of them, have never been out of the US before. So imagine getting on a plane and flying, 24 hours with layovers and stuff to a place, an island off the northwest coast of Malaysia called Penang. Getting there, have a driver pick you up, take you to a hospital, and you roll into a hospital in this foreign country and everybody around you is, Malay or Chinese descent. And they're in the room looking at you, talking to you, and you're going to go under, within hours and thinking, wow, what's that going to feel like when I wake up? Or where in the world am I? So we had to give them that level of comfort that it's really an easy process. And it was something that, my partner and myself, we would never hesitate in a heartbeat to do it. In fact, some of the doctors there are more experienced in certain procedures than here in the US. And we were able to ascertain that information. But I think one of the stories I think kind of encapsulates the entire idea. If you don't mind me sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we had this one gentleman, his name was Wayne, and Wayne contacted us because he was trying to get a double 2-level disc replacement of his spine. He's an insurance agent from California. He'd been injured in an automobile accident and was in excruciating pain. And he met a doctor in California, orthopedic surgeon, actually two, and they looked at all of his records. They looked at all the scans and said, I think the best thing for you is a disc replacement. And the reason a disc replacement, if you're 33 and active, you want to keep the lateral movement, right? So they can do a fusion where they take a piece of bone from your pelvic area and they lock your spine in. So you can bend down and up, but very little lateral movement. So if you're playing golf or tennis or anything like that, it's not a good procedure to go with. So they recommended this 2-level disc replacement. His insurance company agreed to it. So he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. He said, finally, I'm going to take care of this pain and get on with my life. A few days before the surgery, the insurance company called him and said, you know what? We're not going to cover this. We want fusion. We suggest you get a fusion. And we're not doing the disc replacement because it's experimental in nature. So he was completely distraught. His first plan was to go with the procedure because they told him that's the important part, is they told him it would cost estimate over $100,000. So he's like, I got to take care of the pain. So his thought at the time was literally to go get the procedure and then file bankruptcy immediately afterwards. But he knew that's not a good thing, that's not right. So it really bothered him, but he didn't know what else to do. So he got online and said, there has to be a better way. And he had found some international hospitals and he tried himself to call directly and he ran into those problems, time differences, languages, not understanding. He's like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. Eventually he found our company, contacted us. We talked to him, went over everything, discussed our process. And he said, okay, that sounds good. Let's move forward. So we started moving forward with him. We got all of his doctor reports. We got all of his scans, everything together. We sent it to the hospital. They came back and said, yes, we'll do this. Here's our surgeon. We sent the bio and everything to Wayne when we got it back. He said, this looks great. A couple of days later, he called us and said, you know what, I've been doing research, and apparently the surgeon that is going to be doing the case, he's only done like 10 or fewer of these procedures, but I'd like to find one that has at least 50. Can you do that for me? So it's like, give us 24 hours. So we called the hospital back and we told them, hey, our client wants a more experienced doctor on this. So they told us to give them 24 hours and they would see what they could come up with. 24 hours later, they contacted us and said, hey, we found another doctor at another hospital in KL, Kuala Lumpur. He's agreed to fly in on the morning of the surgery, scrub in, and go do the procedure as long as our attending physician or surgeon here at our hospital can scrub in with him. And we're like, we'll check and see. So Wayne, when we got back to him, was absolutely ecstatic. He's like, this is awesome, because this guy had a 200 procedures, which was way more than 50.
Yeah.
So we got everything together, prepared everything for him, got the hotels, booked the surgery date. So he went over, had the procedure done. 2 weeks later, totally recovered, able to come home. He flew back home. The total procedure, including flights and hotels, was $25,000. So like 3 months later, I remember one day he was driving home and he called me and he was just yelling at me on the phone. Like, thank you so much. I'm going to the gym to work out now. And I'm just like, oh my God. So it's life-changing, for somebody in that position.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the idea of what we're able to do through marketing and, bringing these in. It was incredible. We're still friends with some of the doctors over there, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long did you run that business?
Ran it until 2009. And then with the election of Barack Obama, he came in with the first action he took was the Affordable Care Act. So we saw, applications and submissions just plummet because, we were talking about healthcare and he's going to make it affordable and everybody can have the procedure. It didn't turn out that way, of course.
Right.
But at the time, it's just like we were running dry.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for a couple of years trying to manage it, trying to keep it going. And then eventually I met Addison. His son and my son played soccer together. And he said he had some projects at Agora that I could come and work with. So I went there, and first thing I did was it was called the Freedom Kit Initiative, where he had just purchased laissez-faire books and wanted to, reach out to people that would be interested in investing in these books and sending them to universities or local libraries in small areas. Didn't get any traction with that, which is fine. But then they found a way to turn it into part of a new publishing effort, which was called Laissez-Faire, the Laissez-Faire Club. So with my background in alternative healthcare and what I knew about healthcare, they asked me to write a report on like innovative and very inexpensive healthcare in the US, little known that people don't know about. And we found out, like, as we were running MedRetreat, we found that there are also hospitals in America that don't take insurance at all. It's cash pay only. But because of that, again, it's a fraction of the cost. So an example would be Surgical Center of Oklahoma. They don't accept insurance. It's cash pay, but you can go there and get a hip replacement. And I think it's the last time we did research on that was like $19,000 total for a hip replacement. Versus if you didn't have insurance, anywhere from I think it was like $57,000 to $75,000. Wow. Huge savings by doing that here just in the US. So anyway, I wrote this report with all these little known pathways to get fantastic, affordable healthcare. And that report did so well that they were able to fully launch the Laissez-Faire Club. And then they hired me as an editor in their newsletter for healthcare. And I did that for about 5 years.
Mhm.
And that was a paid prescription. And then I decided I wanted to write.
What was the theme for the newsletter?
It's like the theme of I would say it was like alternative ideas. And it wasn't just healthcare, but it was other like investing or um, health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had a CIA, Jason Hansen, I think was part of it, that wrote articles on how to protect yourself, things like that. So just like unique, alternative, little known things that can wholly like help you in life with whatever
Right.
you're dealing with. So I loved it. I mean, every time I got it, because I mean, I was sharing my ideas, but I got ideas from other writers too. And I'm like, oh man, this is fantastic.
That's like I mean that's like the essence of some of the boardroom books products back in like the 90s and 2000s too, where they had kind of like, it was like the big black book was like a collection of all these different little insights from insiders in all these different areas. And so it's like there's that segment of the market that really loves to get all these, like we'd call them like life hacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it's like this life hack kind of content on things that are like really practical for people when it comes to taxes, homes, healthcare, safety. Like,
Yep.
and it's fascinating reads, because my mom used to be a hyper buyer of boardroom, and so she still has all the books. And it is, every now and again I'll pick one of them up and look through there, and it's just like it's candy. Like, it's so interesting and useful. It's like that interesting and useful kind of thing. That is really cool.
Yeah, I think we had a guy wrote several years ago, The Big Book of Free. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but
I have. Yeah. That's been
yeah,
a
he
while.
wrote that. And it was like so many ideas I had no idea about, but you could travel the world for free and had all the ways that you could do it. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's neat. That's neat. And so you make that transition into kind of the newsletter world with Addison and stuff. And you know, you've done, I know from our conversations, you've done copy, you've done editorial like that. You've also managed like podcasts and kind of getting the podcast for Addison up and going, and really kind of a broad experience across kind of FinPub at this point.
Yeah. I mean, social media, analytics, complete podcast production, over 90 episodes, everything from production to post-production. So I have to say, you know, just the entrepreneurial approach I take, and that's what got me into Measure Treat and all the things I did there. And then bringing that experience into the FinPub world, it's like, it's ideas. Like sometimes you're given a project, and this happens to all of us, and you're like, how do you do that? Right. So you walk across the street and get a cup of coffee, pace back and forth at your desk, and then close your eyes, and 30 seconds later, all these ideas just start coming.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go with it. And, you know, you like, I like that, being able to do that, because I don't want, you know, some editor or publisher to give a task and, you know, that person, like if it were me, for example, to keep going back to them, I don't know how to do that. Like, how do I do this? How to do that? It's like, no, give me a task, I'm going to do it. And then start reaching out people internally that I know that has experience with something. They tell me, talk to this person. I talk to that person. They say, oh yeah, use this application.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used that application before. Okay, let me go watch some YouTube videos on it. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos. Oh, that's easy. Start doing that. And then, you know, a day or two later, it's like, here I go, I'm on.
Yeah, I think that's, it's interesting, because I think it's one of those things that's hard to teach people.
Yeah.
And I always think of it like, there's a lot of people who are really good when they have a lane, right?
Yep.
And so like in our business, you have kind of, you think about talent, and that's like, okay, this lane is going to be like editorial talent. This is copy promotion talent. This is like media buying talent. And so there's people who are fantastic just running down those lanes if they have a company that can have lanes. And then you kind of have operational talent too. So there's people who are great like at ops, and there's lanes inside ops. And then marketing. So I think of it like that. It's like there's marketing, there's ops, there's editorial.
Sure.
And then there's like this idea that what an entrepreneur, in my head, I had this phrase for a long time, like an entrepreneur can fit in some of those lanes. He can have those skill sets and talents, but really the thing that like really separates someone with an entrepreneurial mindset is they become an organizing force, right?
Yep.
Like they organize everybody else and figure out how to structure something to make it happen. And that's the thing that's so hard to teach people. And so especially young people who are coming up, because it's like, well, how do I do this? Tell me what to do. How do I do this? And it's like, no, you just got to figure it out. But like, especially when you're in like either a fast growing company when the market's really moving, or a company that's like, hey, we are fighting for survival right now. You need that kind of mindset of like, okay, well, I have this project, this thing needs to get done. There's some money sitting here, but the people who are running the business are running the business, and being able to give it to somebody who says, hey, I need this division. I need this franchise. I need this product. I need this thing that we know we have an opportunity for, but I don't have time to pull it together. And that I feel like is one of the most frustrating things for most of the people that I've talked to in the space about like, sure, yeah, I know I can go after that, but I don't have anybody to do that. And it's because you don't have somebody who can be that organizing force for it. Sure. Because it's really difficult to find people who, I think Mark Ford would call them entrepreneurs too, people who can kind of be that organizing force inside your business as well, or willing to do that versus always starting, because it's like you sometimes you start your own business, sometimes you work with somebody else. It's just moving back and forth. Same with a lot of people in the space. And so I think it's one of those, like, there's no job ad for that, right? Yeah, people don't advertise and say, hey, I need somebody who can just launch this division. They'll usually put it in the context of like, hey, I need this role, and this is the skill set they have. And so it's written for people who have a lane. And then everybody sorts themselves and says, do I fit in that lane or do I not fit in that lane? I don't fit in that lane. I don't fit in that lane. Oh, here's my lane. Here's a job for my lane. But that people like you who can take an entrepreneurial approach, like you have all these different skill sets and all this experience just across FinPub even, I think because of that, like you're the kind of guy that somebody can say, okay, we need to go get this done. Can you get it off the ground? Can you get it launched? And then you're just going to figure it out and drive it forward and make it happen.
Yeah. I totally agree. And at the same time, I'm also a team player. So, I communicate and work well with others. I have a very calm approach. So I don't get flustered. I don't go off into fits of yelling or anything like that. I'm more just kind of laid back, and I'm just, like I said, I take a walk, I pace back and forth, and I close my eyes, because I feel like action, just moving, like even if I load the dishwasher or something like that, while I'm loading the dishwasher, just boom, 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 like tons of ideas are coming to my head. And then I sit down and say, okay, they got to figure this out. But I totally agree. And that's like, if you look at a lot of job, announcements or whatever, job searches, they do have those lanes, and they say, we need somebody that can do X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, I'll look at it, I'm like, I haven't done X, Y, and Z, but I know I'll figure it out quickly. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm not scared of that. Like, right. Give me a new challenge, I'll take it on. But sometimes I understand there's companies that say, no, we need somebody to jump in day one and start cranking this. Mm-hmm. That I'll just be honest and say, that wouldn't be me. I'm not going to be. But if you have, 3 days you want to give me, I'll figure that out pretty quickly. Yeah. So. Definitely. Yeah. But I mean, even so, like at this point, like you have a lot of practical experience on kind of, like I said, editorial, especially like copy to get things out, project management, within the publishing franchises, how to pull things together, get it onto social media, pulling guests and everything else into podcasts. Like you have kind of a broad experience across the space, which I think is really cool. A good understanding of what good editorial is as well. Yep. Yeah, definitely. I went to Copy Camp back in 2018. That was awesome. Learned a lot of tactics there. Then I wrote copy for a couple years, about a year and a half before Addison tabbed me to come to Consilience
Mhm.
and help him launch that off the ground. So was happy to do that again. I got to sit down and
Affiliate marketing.
yeah, it's just like yeah, I've done that as well and totally enjoyed it. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Like um right now we're in a period in the industry where, there's been a lot of layoffs, there's been a lot of people who are out, or people who are like not laid off but half laid off, in the sense that like they go from employee to 1099. I know that's a situation you've been in, to where like you're doing more project work, and so that means your time is available
Sure.
on a greater basis to people who might want to do some stuff. And so like having that kind of um like right now, it just seems like it's a great time for people to start to work to find people who have different skill sets, to fill holes, to find new networks, like affiliate networks, like relationships. Because even like, I was having this conversation with somebody in the industry, was it down in Jackson, sometime in the last couple of weeks, I'm trying to remember. And it's like, they were talking about the list for the events and stuff like that. And I'm like, the event list, like this is a B2B, like I'm in a B2B role in that sense, like on that side. And like everybody, all the media companies have the same list of people that I have in the space to a large degree, or even more in some cases. And it's like, it's not like relationships and lists are different things. And so when you're working inside an industry, it's the relationships. Like everyone could know the same people, have the same roles, but like you're going to have a different relationship with the people that you've had affiliate partnerships with than I will have with them, right? And so I
Right.
think that sometimes one of the things that like people overlooked is how quickly you can bring in new relationships when you start to work with a new person. Is that if you have existing relationships across the business, then it's an easy door for you to open to like these 20 people that for somebody over here, like they would have to grind that out, and then they lose the time, and it's really difficult, and maybe they never really quite get a close relationship. And so it's like
Yeah.
knowing who the people are and then having actual relationships is a different thing. And so I always encourage people like, hey, try and work with somebody new for a change, just to see like if they have experience and are a veteran in the space, because it's like kind of a melding of forces. And I think we've seen that in this last few years in different ways, where kind of when I always say when Brett Holmes came out of Money Map, which is, kind of an infamous story at this point, and now he's back though. But when he came back, he brought a lot of knowledge, or when he went out, he brought a lot of knowledge, and he brought a lot of relationships out into the space that kind of helped a bunch of people. And then he gained a bunch of relationships and knowledge from the other side of the space that he
Right.
didn't have when he was in there. And so that's just, it's kind of like a more formal, not formal, it's a deeper work way of networking, is kind of either doing project work with people who come from other sides of the industry, doing hiring people from other sides of the industry. That really, like, it seeds a lot of things from I'd say ideas, relationships, looking at things in a different way, because every company looks at things a little bit different than the other one. Yeah, so a little bit of a rant, but I do see a huge amount of like cross-pollination of value that happens when people work with folks from other parts of the industry, especially when they're veterans.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like the way I look at it, it's like you're bringing in fresh ideas, new ideas, right? Ideas are critical. I mean,
Mm,
that's you have to have ideas, vision. And sometimes if you're in a role for too long, it becomes stale and there's no new innovation, no new ideas.
mhm.
But definitely able to cross-pollinate and get in and bring those ideas to bear. I mean, I think that's so important.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
and
also having like a group of people, a team that can take those ideas and then put them into action. There's a
mhm.
lot of disconnect there where some people are great at generating ideas, but they never take action on anything.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. There's definitely
Yeah.
a lot of that. But I think it's interesting because you and I, we decided to do this because you'd reached out, we were talking, and I know you're available to work with other folks right now. And so I thought it'd be great to kind of just do this to kind of give people just the introduction and realize that, there's that you're out there. And if they're able to, if they see roles where maybe you can fit or help them, to reach out. And I'm happy to make the connection for anybody that wants to connect with Jud. And I think it's, we have this great bench of talent in the space all across the board. And it's always kind of just like finding the right homes at the right times for people. And so anyone out there who's looking for somebody who can really drive projects home, really kind of take something and run with it, like Jud's there. He's got a ton of experience, built a successful business on his own that's quite unique, actually. It's kind of complex and cool. And so I think that's hopefully there's some good relationships out there for you, Jud. And anyone who wants to connect with Jud, just hit me up.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I'm going to do more of these where we can just start to introduce folks across the space that are kind of get to know you, meet the industry kind of conversations. So I was excited to start this with you. So I appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
You as well.